Hey folks, greetings and welcome. Now today I want to talk about Rory Stewart and Zack Polanski. Now I've just finished listening to the podcast that they've done together. There's been a lot of talk about it this week, so I wanted to check it out. And I've got some thoughts. I want to share those thoughts with you today. Those of you who don't know, haven't seen the podcast, haven't seen what's been going on, the Rory Stewart and Zack Polanski have got very different economic ideas, and they kind of come to blows slightly on the podcast. Rory Stewart is very traditional, balance the books, Tory austerity, keep down the debt style economics, and Zack Polanski is for something vastly different. Modern monetary theory, I believe they call it, where basically the theory where if you control your own currency, like the US, UK, Japan, you can borrow. You never really run out of money because you can create money. It's more about just controlling inflation. And these sort of two ideas were warring in this podcast. And my thoughts, first of all, I think the problem that Zack's got is that Rory Stewart style economics is always going to be so much easier for the general public to understand, because we do it all in our life at home with our household budgets. You know, we understand the fact taxes come in, you pay for things with your taxes. Then if you have to borrow, you do it with a risk because you've got to pay interest. So is it going to be worth it? And then Rory Stewart will throw out stats that seem very scary to people. You know, that the country is currently in a £1 trillion worth of debt, and the interest that we pay on that debt every year is sort of 100 billion. You know, these sort of stats are very scary to people because we understand the fear of getting into debt because of our household. We understand those style of politics very, very clear. And the problem that Zack has is talking about modern monetary theory for the average person is just, you might as well be talking about astrophysics. Honestly, and I like to deem myself as reasonably intelligent, but it blows my mind down. Whenever I listen to this stuff, it really does blow my mind. I think you have to have a real decent grasp on economics to actually get your head around this. And this is the problem. It could be the solution to all our problems, but until the public can really properly actually get a grasp on what it is and properly understand it, and you can actually find some sort of simple, easy way to discuss this stuff with people, you're going to have a hard time convincing them. You know, I don't think I'm alone in this. You know, I don't know, maybe it's my dyslexia that makes me struggle, you know, with mathematics and stuff like that. Dyslexics always have a much more creative brain, you know, artistic musicians and stuff. You know, I can quite happily sit here and ponder on a subject for ages and come up with some really wacky ideas, but just stats and mathematics and economics and government bonds and, oh God, as soon as I hear this stuff, like so many times I've really tried to invest. I've watched several videos from people that are in the know with this stuff. Every time it blows my mind. I can't get my head around it. So we people like Zack desperately need to find a way of explaining this stuff a lot more simple to the average person. And he's fighting with the fact that the average person knows so well the economics of the household that Rory Stewart is putting across. Now, there is one advantage that Zack has. One advantage is because I voted for these style economics twice without really fully understanding them. In 2017 and 2019, Labour were putting forward these style of economics, and I voted for it through pure trust. And this is the one advantage that Zack has, is that Rory Stewart style economics have been playing out over the last 15 years. You know, some will say the last 20, 30, 40 years. We've had these style economics from Rory Stewart, and they've been terrible. They've been a disaster. The country is on its knees. Homelessness, poverty, the housing market, take your pick, every single aspect, councils, every single aspect of this country is on its knees through 15 years at least of Rory Stewart style economics, of balancing the books, of austerity. And that's the thing. Like, you could get on board with Rory Stewart if what he was proposing has worked and has been working over the last 15 years, but it hasn't. It's been a disaster. So this is the one advantage that Zack has. And, you know, I do find it very hard sometimes sitting there listening to Rory Stewart have a go at Zack Polanski, even though I struggle with the economics of what Zack is talking about. But I find it very hard listening to Rory Stewart have a go at him for his ideas when his ideas have been shit for the last 15 years at least. It's been god awful. George Osborne and David Cameron's economics of balancing the books and austerity was the single worst thing that ever happened to this country. The stripping back of our council funding, the stripping back of public services is exactly why this country is on its knees. And also they committed the sin of not borrowing and investing when interest rates were zero, when we didn't have these high interest rates to borrow. Now costs us a fortune to borrow. Back then, zero interest rates, and they didn't borrow to invest in our infrastructure. It's criminal. So even though the public struggle, and I think they do, with Zack style economics, if you can't find an easier explanation for it to people to understand, at least attack the likes of Rory Stewart for his style of economics that have just not worked. They've not worked for years and have just been the absolute root cause problem of everything that's wrong with this country. Anyway, folks, that's my thoughts on the topic. I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you find these style economics easy to understand? Do you not? Am I alone on this? Because I really don't think I am. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Anyway, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate you clicking a like. I want to push these videos out to as many people as possible. And till next time, take care.